Voila. We'll see if Hangouts can actually handle the amount of brain explosion happening on this podcast. Welcome to Hacking Business Technology.
So how's it going, Baron?
Oh my gosh. So did you watch the tweet streams from Pink? Because wow, there was a lot of content.
Yeah, he was pretty busy. It was tough to stay off on. You know, there's become a few pretty good tweeters at the events. And it's interesting. There was one woman, Amy, she was tweeting like a madman. And I was in a couple of sessions and she was mad woman, yes. And she, every time I went to go tweet something, I couldn't get it typed in fast enough. And she'd already tweeted it. I'm like, I'm not going to be duplicative on the stream. So I was probably more quiet at this conference than I've been at any other conference. There's actually some pretty good tweeters, which is great, right? Good to consume.
Snapster. I think that's her handle, Snapster.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, she's incredible. Definitely follow her during events. If she's going to the event, it's like you're there. You know, all the quality stuff that Skeptic was throwing out, fantastic. Man, his session must have been really good because a lot of people shared stuff from it.
Yeah, his session was good. It was interesting. You know, he's such a smart guy. Of course, he's a skeptic, and he does challenge things. I agree with a lot of things he says most of the time. On this one thing, he was trying to show that DevOps, though, over time will actually just degenerate back into standard operations as we have it today. Because it's this new thing of people who have this imperative to want to move faster. So they'll throw what they need to do to get it out there faster. But then over time, it doesn't make sense to sustain that. And then that falls back into, well, what can we leverage? So I appreciate what he's saying, and he's probably right if that were the only points to focus on. But when you throw it in my world, shadow IT and business IT, if it's truly commoditative and you've done that from a DevOps perspective, you're just going to go buy that as a SaaS once it gets to that point anyways. So if you've always say that you needed to get out marketing mobile technology, so you threw a team at it, DevOps, continuous release, fast changes, trying to figure out what you want. Now you've figured out what you want. Now it's become commoditized in your organization. All of a sudden you start realizing, oh, there's 5 products I could just buy as a business unit that do that already. So why am I going to pay this ops team overhead? Why don't I just go get it as a SaaS, right?
Yeah, I think about that as a cycle too. You know, like the move to SaaS and the move away from SaaS and back to SaaS, and I think there's a learning curve there, and you know, with the what do I want to say? The uptime or the dependability of Amazon and decent modern applications, you could actually forego SaaS completely if you were given the right applications and like decent hackers in your business.
Mm-hmm. You're saying just leverage cloud infrastructure.
Cloud infrastructure plus good applications plus, you know, jack of all trades, truly talented application developers. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. The problem that I've come across, or the problem that I think that we're reaching in the SaaS space, is around support. How do you scale support when your application scales so well?
You know, that goes off even to service management support, right? Because Carlos Casanova was talking about configuration management, particularly around the cloud. And his session was fairly well attended, but it was very interesting when you have a room full of ITSM people who live in that ITSM bubble, asking about something that exists so far outside their bubble. They came at it exactly in the way that you would expect them to. How do I control the cloud? How do I manage the cloud? How do I manage the assets and the relationships in the cloud? And I'm thinking, okay, so you have your CMDB and you create a CI that says Amazon, and you're done.
Yep. If you want to set up a folder to like ping
Yeah, yeah. If you want to create a relationship, you can tie it to the contract you have with Amazon.
Yeah.
Or maybe, some attributes could be how much you're paying Amazon, or what is the level of support that you get. Fine. The vital business functions that support it, great. But as far as the actual assets themselves, who cares?
Yeah, it's gone. And really the challenge, or the reason that I think they want to answer that question is so that they can get it under their financial umbrella to say, we're paying for this Amazon, we're managing this Amazon, this is the value we're providing to the business, when the reality is they didn't come to the table with that. Their dessert has been served.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a level of, oh, I wish I could have claimed that as my success. But I think also, too, it just comes back to the fear factor. ITSM level 2 folks, not the service desk folks, not tier 1 support folks, not incident folks, but ITSM tier 2 who are thinking high availability, risk, capacity, security, performance. They, I think, approach everything from a fear factor, right? And not from an output. And so it's, well, what is that SaaS application doing, and what happens if it goes down, and how do I manage to change around it? And it's like you're missing the point. It's and so don't come at it from a fear. Think of it from an opportunity perspective.
Yes.
Now, how do I manage release to the SaaS? How do I manage requirements to the SaaS? Then you're taking a different approach.
How do I integrate?
Yeah, push the burden back on the SaaS provider. Set your expectations of what you want them to do from a release and an uptime and a validation. Force them to say, I don't care how you test this thing. I don't care how you configure and deploy. I just need my changes out by the end of the week on a weekly cycle.
Yeah. And
if you don't do that, I'm firing you and buying a different SaaS.
And the function I think that serves that really well is enterprise architecture.
Yes.
They're the ones that could actually say, well, there are all these cloud provider options out there. This one integrates well, that one doesn't. We've already chosen to put 30% of our compute on Amazon Web Services, so throwing the other 70% there isn't that big of a deal, or another 2% or whatever. You need that higher level guidance, and it has to be in the business to do that sort of thing. So which brings us to the topic of today's episode, which is the scope of service management. We tried desperately to talk about this last week.
Hangouts weren't playing.
The scope of Hangouts was apparently too great. We had too many people. It's just such a high demand. We have hundreds of people who want to watch the show every week. It's just tough to stream live to hundreds of people.
Hundreds of thousands. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Hundreds of thousands.
And in that vein too, Charlie Betts, mutual friend of ours, Minnesota native to you, he and I have been talking a lot about the IT for IT. He's a huge fan.
And,
open group standard and what it's doing and why it's doing it. And what I like about IT for IT is when it comes to classifying systems and architectures, everybody's trying to reinvent the wheel when it comes to asset repositories and configuration management and category types and items. And we don't need to do that anymore, right? This truly is a standard that we can leverage and we can set, right? These will be your starting points. Of course, you can drill into details and make it your own, but this gives you the starting point. These are the things you must have, right? Or identify the gaps. So,
yeah, it's like TOGAF, except for there's this layer of what's required.
Yeah.
Foundational elements. It's the stuff that I think should be in scope for service management. So like if you pick that apart, that's actually a really good case where, there are specific things that don't touch anything else in the business. C&W is a perfect example. And of course, we always go to that one because it's really IT data. So of course, that's a perfect thing to have in scope for your service management tool.
Yeah.
I think where it starts to get interesting is when you start talking about incident management, for example. Every business function has an idea similar to incident management, whether it's like response management or case management or even just customer service for your product. or services that you provide. And so I think like oftentimes that's sort of a conversation that probably doesn't happen because your customer service function hopefully is already doing really well, because otherwise you should be out of business. And so they've usually already got a tool that they're using to track information, and it may actually be working pretty well for them. And the reason that I bring this up as a topic, or that I've been trying to make this a topic of conversation here, is because it seems to make sense to me. You know, we've always said this: jack of all trades, master of none. How can I tell what I should put in my service management platform and what I shouldn't? Like, what is the threshold?
It depends on, I think, your view of what service management is. Right?
Yeah, and even then, I think the problem that I have with it is, if it is a platform, let's say you pick something big, BMC or ServiceNow or whatever, it becomes this behemoth to your department and teams, where so many things use it, you can't change it. And I feel this shift within myself that I want to move to smaller systems that do things really well with other systems, or even better, transparent systems. I don't even know what system's running it in the background.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the deployment architecture, right? So some of these platforms, you can create standalone applications that are best of breed and service a certain domain, but yet the technology that supports it is consistent. So your skill set level, right? Now, ServiceNow, for example, you had to learn Jelly, and you had to learn what a UI policy was, right? And a record producer and all this other language. But once you learned that, if you want to create an application, say for registering kids at school for certain programs, it wasn't that hard.
Right.
And then if you want to turn around and do registering parents for a certain program, it would be very similar in its technology. So that allows agility and scalability, right?
It's a platform.
Performance. Yeah, it's a platform. I think the challenge becomes is not necessarily the platform, but the expertise, the subject matter expertise. When you look at, and this was a big issue that I had with ServiceNow moving into the HR space, they kept promoting case management as if it was somehow an HR service management platform. But case management was just a place to log grievances against. And those grievances, and it really didn't have anything. You'd have to go back and rebuild all the structural elements, such as organizational structure and management structure and policy relationship, and understanding what the regulatory pressures were in certain countries and all these other things, which a lot of other tools in the marketplace already had.
Workday.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Workday definitely has some of that stuff around benefits and position and organizational management. So, but even then, they were one of the weaker ones. SAP HR would be one more robust one, right? So it had that expertise kind of built in. It was more than just labels, right? It's easy to think that all we have to do is just label it something that HR will recognize and they'll use it, and that's not the case, right?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like, that's a pretty good use case where I think there may be value in tying ServiceNow to Oracle or SAP HR. Or there may be value in tying ServiceNow to Taleo. You know, you've got these recruits, someone accepts a position through HR, great. Let's enter them into the ServiceNow system and kick off a workflow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, that's sort of I think that's the imperative. That is the imperative, to stay focused on that. Because if you don't understand why something would be in a tool as opposed to another tool, it's likely that there is less value in making it fit than there is in finding the right fit. Boom.
Yeah, it's about improvement, right? It's one of the first things when I came to Landesk, one of the first things the CTO came up to me and asked, he said, Matt, how would you feel about our integration with Landesk Management Suite, which does all your desktop support and patch and software distribution? integrated into ServiceNow. I said, you'd be a fool not to do that. He was thinking somehow I would feel like that would be competitive because I'm product strategist over the service management side of the house. And I'm saying to him, ServiceNow's got a huge marketplace, right? Customers, if their service desk is working for them and they need Management Suite, well, heck, ServiceNow's a Landesk customer. They use Management Suite. Why would we not give them that capability, right? So it's just sometimes we get hung up on these everything's going to be in one platform. It doesn't happen. Everything's got to adhere to one data model. That's my bigger concern, is the data and the domain expertise. Right? Focus on those elements. That's why I was a huge fan of SnapLogic, and I'm a fan of MuleSoft, and I'm a fan of other tools like that can aggregate data from different places. Company you work for, Connect Data, does that too. It takes some layers over different request platforms and gives it some singularity, because it's not about the tool, right? It's about this. It's about the outcome, the system, and how you get there.
Yes. That is how you hack business technology. Think about the outcomes and the value and the data. All the rest of it is just marketing.
It is just marketing. And it's expensive.
Very expensive. It's very, very expensive.
And the organization can't handle it. The OCM is way too high, right? For them to adopt it, it's too much complexity. And now what you've done is you're focused on religious warfare of like who tools what, right? Have a normalization strategy over time. Go back and say, where is the complete overlap, and can we maybe consolidate tools or do here from a licensing and financial maintenance perspective. But otherwise, think about what outcomes we're achieving. Because tool consolidation has never really fixed any particular problem. And certainly tool sprawl has caused problems. So neither one's a right solution. You have to focus on what works in your level of improvements. Where do we want to improve? I'll give you another example. So, password resetting. Right? There's a lot of every service desk tool offers some kind of password reset capability.
Yeah.
And yet when people come up and say, well, your tool doesn't offer this, and this tool does, well, then buy that and we just integrate it. Right?
Yeah.
If those are really your requirements, then buy it and integrate it. What's the integration capabilities? So a true platform, like a Landesk and a ServiceNow, I mean, they're very web services, API driven, have back-end event data. It's the orchestration of an outcome, not necessarily the has to control the logic or the interface to it. Right?
Yeah. I wish LinkedIn would take a note on that.
Yeah, they're one of the brutal ones, right? And it questions their viability in the marketplace. I mean, you still can't get your LinkedIn messages in any other third-party tool, right?
Yeah, so you can't even query your followers.
No.
You can't query anything. It's not an open data architecture. It's so closed.
It's so closed, and they've continued to close it even more. I mean,
how long will that last?
It's going to last forever because Reid Hoffman doesn't care.
and because it is such high adoption.
It does have high adoption. I think there's 300 million users.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's pretty high. But it should be higher, right?
And it would be if they would open it up.
It would be if they'd open it up, but there's no tangible value in LinkedIn except as that electronic Rolodex, and for recruiters. Right?
Yeah,
it's your online resume. And it's one of the big reasons we shut down Smack was 90% of our value was in the data analysis of LinkedIn data, and they just continued to tighten up and block APIs. And next thing you know, our dashboards weren't working, and all these algorithms that we had painstakingly and expensively built to do predictive analysis just stopped working. So there's another problem too with integration, right? One feed of data breaks. That's a pro of platform plays. Is that you're usually not going to prevent one app from talking to the other app when it's on the same platform. You have control over that. But it's it's a constant battle. If you love your information, set it free. Set it free, yeah. All right, that's how you hack. And if it loves you, it comes back to you.
Hopefully with value attached. Okay. Yeah, it's true. That's how you hack business technology. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.